Could you, Dr. Henry, if to the degree you can, tell British Columbians when and what they can expect to need a vaccine passport for, and what it is not likely to be required for? And we've heard international travel, but we've also heard suggestions domestic travel or going into stores in British Columbia. Do you have a clear sense of when it's likely to be required and when it's not likely to be required?
Yeah, so this is something that obviously I've been paying a lot of attention to, been working with Jay Clark and his team at the Ombudsperson to make sure that it goes back to some of the things that we've seen, Minister Callon mentioned as well, that this virus has shown us that there are inequities in our society that have been exacerbated by this pandemic. And there is no way that we will recommend inequities be increased by use of things like vaccine passports for services, for public access here in British Columbia. And that's my advice, and I've got support from the Premier, and I have talked about this, Minister Dix and others. I do think it will be something that will be necessary to support international travel, and that is something we're working with our colleagues in the Public Health Agency and at the federal level to make sure that Canadians have access to travel in the same way that other countries do as well. But it would not be my advice that we have any sort of vaccine passport within British Columbia for services in BC. So a new provincial health officer order will require individuals to provide proof of vaccination, our BC vaccination card, to access certain social, recreational, and discretionary events and businesses throughout the province. As of September 13th, you will need to have at least one dose of vaccine to enter these settings, and by October 24th, entry to these settings will require people aged 12 and older to be fully vaccinated at least 7 days after receiving both doses. So the settings that we're talking about include indoor ticketed sporting events, indoor concerts, theater, dance, and symphony events, indoor and patio dining in restaurants, nightclubs and casinos, fitness centers, gyms, and businesses offering indoor high-intensity exercise, organized indoor events like weddings or parties, birthdays, conferences, and workshops, and indoor organized events, discretionary organized indoor recreational classes and activities, so things like seniors classes, choirs, and other indoor groups. These new measures will help reduce transmission and keep our communities safer and ensure we can continue to keep businesses open, continue to have those social and arts and sports events as safely as we can for those who are protected. There will continue to be many ways for people to receive their first and second doses of vaccine. It's quick, it's safe, it's easy, and it's the best way we have to protect yourself and your community, and to be able to continue to participate in these important social and arts and sports events. So I encourage you to visit gov.bc.ca, Vax for BC, to find a clinic near you. This simple act will make all the difference, as we know it is the way to stop the higher transmission that we're seeing with the Delta variant across the province now. So there will be more details about how to access your BC vaccination card, but just be assured it is a confidential system that will allow you to download onto your phone the card that indicates whether you are partially vaccinated, fully vaccinated, or unvaccinated, and businesses will be able to required to look for your vaccination card and your proof of identification, as we do for many other things if we're attending a concert or going into a liquor store, for example. So that is there will also be provisions for people who don't have access to a phone to be able to do this through our call center, and we'll be ramping up and giving you the details of that in the coming weeks. So by the end of the long weekend, we'll have all of those details out for you. But this is our way of getting through this next phase of the pandemic that we've been dealt, and to make sure that we can go through the fall with safely reopening schools, safely reopening post-secondary education for students, for faculty, and to safely continue our businesses and events through the fall. We also need to continue to do those things that keep us safe, including wearing masks in indoor public areas, using hand hygiene regularly, and keeping our respectful distance from people. We need to, and we will be, continually reassessing and adapting as we go through this next phase and we deal with the pandemic cards that we've been dealt. This will be a time-limited initiative, and will eventually, as we move into the fall, we'll continue to work with the federal government to make sure we have an alignment with the federal vaccine passport that's under development as well. But for now, this is what we need to continue to operate safely in our communities as we head into this next fall. And it will allow us to get through this with compassion and with kindness, as we have been doing all along here in BC.
Next question is from Richard Sisman, Global News.
One of the challenges here, obviously, is going to be enforcement. Dr. Henry, you just alluded to the businesses will have some responsibility here. Can you talk about what we expect from a restaurant or a movie theater in terms of enforcing that someone has the proper identification, and what would the process be like if someone refuses, tells an 18-year-old server that, they're coming in and they don't have proof of immunization with them?
I know these are the challenging things that we've been facing throughout this pandemic, but it is very much the same thing as looking at proof of identification of age to get into a bar or a nightclub, for example. So yes, we'll be working, and I know there's a number of ministries involved to support businesses in how to manage this. We're making it as simple as we possibly can to have a confidential way of determining people's immunization status. Mostly it'll be either by phone or by showing a paper copy, plus proof of who you are, so it'll have government ID as well. And yes, we do expect that there may be a small group of people who are protesting against this, as they have for other measures along the way. But we, as it is a provincial health officer order, we do have the ability to support businesses with bylaw officers, with environmental health officers, and we'll be continuing to work with them to support businesses in doing this in a way that's effective.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining into the Will and Dave Show. Tonight's kind of a big night. We've got a really fantastic guest on. We want to add a little kind of disclaimer going into the show tonight. We want to keep the focus of the show on Sean Cahill, who we'll introduce you to shortly. We don't want to get sidetracked too much with talking about the whether twos and the why fours of vaccines, good, bad, masks, good, bad. We want to focus more on the creation of this BC Businesses Against the Vaccine Passport group and talking to Sean about his experience in creating it, as opposed to getting into the wider discussion. But going into that, we're going to give a slight content disclaimer as well. We're going to be talking about vaccines, passports, health concerns, etc. And so we may touch on some subjects related to that, but it shouldn't be anything too hairy. We just wanted you to be aware as we get into the show.
Welcome to the Will and Dave Show.
Hey, William.
Hey, Dave.
Let me turn this music down and do my part of the job.
Nice and smooth, baby.
I don't know that I've ever been called smooth in my life.
Your head's smooth.
My head is smooth. It's a bit of a week. And
just a bit.
It's been a little bit hairy, and it's raining on the back of our screen. Did you see that?
It did. New look is.
Yeah, new look for a new week and a new thing. We have a show today, so we're going to cut away from all the stuff and get right into the show here. Although I sort of wanted to give a shout out, but for our episode sponsor, if that's all right with you fine folks.
Lay it on us.
The sponsor for this episode is Northern Truss, your one-stop shop for floor systems and for all your truss needs. phone the team at Northern Quilt at 250-787-3033. Locally owned and operated in Fort St. John, BC.
Hey there, and thanks for tuning into the Will and Dave Show. I'm Susan, and I don't know about you, but I think that in the whole world there's nothing as warm and comforting as a handmade quilt. And quilters the world over have wonderful stories to tell. So to showcase their stories, I host a podcast. It's called Measure Twice, Cut Once, and Other Life Lessons Learned from Quilters. You can tune in to the podcast anywhere that podcast apps are, whatever your favorite is, or you can find a direct link on my website, stitchedbysusan.com. And now, back to the show.
Hey.
Welcome back. The busy work's out of the way.
Yeah, all the stuff about the stuff that makes this thing happen.
Yeah.
In the interest of full disclosure, the first one, Northern, is my brother. And he sponsors the show by being my brother, not disowning me.
It's moral support, Dave. It's moral support.
The other one is your mother, who pays for the software so we can do what we do. So that's the show. We're going to bring on our guests because this is all about them and not about us.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one will be your number one fan, Tim, who's going to be introducing our next guest, who is Sean. Mm-hmm. And why don't we bring them on the show right now once I unmute them and do whatever the heck it is I do. Hey, guys.
Hi, Dave.
Hey.
Hello, everyone.
So I believe everybody here knows you, or, well, no, I should say that about 3 of our regulars know who Tim is, as you're a friend of mine who used to get to be my boss, and now I get to be the boss of you here on the show. And you phoned me up about a week ago and said, hey, Dave, have you heard about this group? Or not even a week ago. I think it was on Monday you called me and said, hey, do you know about this group, Dave? I'm like, no, I didn't. You carry it from there, Tim.
Well, thanks. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for allowing me to have my say and be part of this whole conversation. I feel quite honored, to be honest with you. I do myself have a bit of a disclaimer. The disclaimer is that as people that may have chimed in or whatever, and who may know me that are online, I have owned several businesses throughout my life, starting my first business when I was 21 years old. And I just want to make sure that that these comments and these are my thoughts and opinions wholly and have no affiliation with any previous businesses that I've owned, current or perhaps ones in the future. So I'd just like to make that very clear that these are opinions that are based solely on my thoughts. So
I would have to ditto that.
Thanks, Sean. So the way it works here more than anything is I've known Sean for a brief period of time, and how I came to know Sean actually is kind of a bit of a strange story. Is that my grandchildren actually go to the same school as Sean, and throughout those, like my granddaughter and his son, they kind of play along with one another and they catch the bus together. And I seen Sean at the school and I seen his wife at the school, and I've been back and forth, and it's hey, how you doing?
Same school as my children, not me.
Yeah. I was wondering.
Make that perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Just how old are you, Tim? Jeez.
So that's kind of how I've known Sean, and kind of a mutual friend again through my son-in-law and daughter. So it's just one of those things that we got to know one another. How I come to know of the group more than anything is kind of a strange thing. Is I was online and just kind of surfing through Facebook, and all of a sudden I get a text message from another friend and go, hey, check this out. And just like everyone else, I thought, oh yeah, another Facebook group that's just going to sit there and, bash this and bash that and COVID this, COVID that. And I'm quite frankly done with that. I'm over it. In my opinion, I don't care one way or the other what people think, whether it's real, whether it's wrong, whether you're an anti-mask, whether you're vax for. I'm done. All that I was looking for, and I wanted to see what Sean had going on, and because I knew him, I thought, well, I'll creep this guy for a little while and see what this group is all about. And all of a sudden, I started to see that he was looking, and the people that were chiming in were looking for like-minded individuals that were feeling that the overreach of governmental processes bureaucracy, being told how to conduct business and do that was getting a little bit overwhelming. So I joined the group, and I think at the time I joined, there was like 9,000 people that were following it at the time. So it took some time to catch on before I would join the group. Oh my God, it's gone viral since then. So Sean, maybe you can take it from there. That's kind of a bit of an intro on how we met, and perhaps maybe we can get right into the nuts and bolts of this.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. It was Tuesday actually that I started it, not Monday. I was looking for, I heard about the mandate coming out for the passports and wanted to try to find some other like-minded people where I might be able to go have lunch. I'm a tradesman. I'm not really, anything special. I'm just a guy. I, drink a beer on Friday nights and wear Carhartts and play with my kids and walk my dogs and all that sort of stuff. But I wanted to see if anybody shared my values and shared my ideas. And I'd never made a group before. I'm not even all really that techie. So I figured Facebook would probably be the best place to do it. And I put a group out there, and about an hour later I had 100 people following. I was pretty excited about that. And by the time I went to bed, it was 2,000 or 3,000, and woke up and it had just taken off like a rocket sled on rails. And now it's exploded into something that I never would have even expected in my wildest dreams, that anything like this would ever take off like this.
Yeah. It was really incredible, honestly. My Facebook, because a bunch of people that I know, I guess, jumped into it early on. And so I was aware of the group's existence, and I was like, oh, hey, cool. A Facebook group about this. I didn't join it. I didn't really look too deeply into it until I got a call from Dave saying, hey, have you heard about it? And I was like, yeah. He's like, it went to like 40,000 subscribers in 2 days. And I was like, what? How?
It's well, I think it's got to do with the message that we put forward. I mean, we put forward a message that's not like, it's very inclusive. We're all about unity. We don't discriminate whether you've had a vaccine or not, or you're masked or anti-masked or anything like that. We are strictly pro freedom, pro charter, and pro personal choice. We
pro medical
choice
and
medical choice, medical privacy. We want to make sure that everybody's included. We don't want to steer away and head off onto different tangents of conspiratorial stuff or any of this. We try really hard to make sure that we moderate that stuff and keep it off our page. There's other pages for that they can do that there. This was strictly to be a compendium of like-minded individuals and businesses, where if you were if I wanted to drive up to Prince George and find a restaurant that shared my values, I could go onto the page, type in hashtag Prince George and have a bunch of businesses come up where I could give my support to people that share my ideas. And there's 3 ways that we change things in the world. If we're upset with stuff and we don't like the way things are done, we got our vote, we got our voice, and how we spend our money. And it's very important to put your money into things that you support. Right.
So I got to ask, how has it been for you to have this group go from 0 to, well, now, what was it, 92,000? As of today?
It's up. So, oh man, it's like a great.
The time commitment to you has got to be insane.
I try. I mean, I still got a day job, so I focus very hard on my work. I don't want it to interrupt any of that. But there's a great group of people have come out of the woodwork to help out. We grabbed a bunch of people. We got Monica, Joel, Heidi, Carol, Richard, Jenny, Taylor, the other Jenny, Brandon, Chase, Michael, Steph. There's another Taylor, Sarah. We've got a lot of people that just jumped out to give us a hand and help out. That's awesome. Us. Yeah, it's some really good people that are much more, know a whole lot more about this stuff than I do. I'm a tradesman. I'm not a techie guy. I didn't even know that it was, how to make things public or private or any of that stuff. I just figured, I'm just going to make a group and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'm really I like seeing on the group is, and maybe I'm bringing it up a bit too early within the show, but is the medical freedom. I don't think anybody has the right to ask me for my medical records, my medical vaccination status or whatever. And Will and I got into a bit of a, not heated, I can say, but perhaps a bit of a rant more than anything here a couple nights ago on Messenger, going back and forth, is that I don't think it's right that I have to divulge my medical status to someone to go get a hamburger at this particular point in time. I just went through the death of losing both my parents here in a very short time ago, and I was unable to access any of their medical history. I was unable to access any of their medications they were taking because it was privileged confidentiality between the doctor and my mother at the time. The only way that I was able to understand what was going on and what the medications were used for and what they were giving them to my mom for is that I had to go through a court, or not a court, but through a lawyer, where I had to wheel my mother into a lawyer's office where she then had to be interviewed not only by the lawyer to make sure that she was competent and capable of making her own decisions, and that the doctor would allow that to happen and gave her a clean bill of, mental capacity that she could do it, where then she had to sign a power of attorney for me to access her records. Mm-hmm. Yet, like I say, now it seems that you can just, here's my record here. This is what you can do here. And everybody seems to think that that's okay. No, this is my own private choice. Like I said earlier, I'm not pro-mask. I'm not anti-mask. I'm not pro-vaccine. I'm not against vaccines. But you know what? I have the right to keep that confidential. I don't think anybody in today's society has the right to know what I have for medical issues or what I have for medications.
Right. Totally. I mean, you never get anybody asking you are you circumcised?
Well, thank you for saying that, because that was one of the
I had to
questions
jump back in
I
on
asked
that
Will
one.
there.
What was the result of your last pap smear?
Of course.
Let me see your toxicology report. Right? I mean,
Did you have the sniffles last week, or are you good?
Right.
It's okay to smile, Tim. That was a funny. Have you been circumcised? It's okay.
It's not. It wasn't directed at you, Tim.
I guess in this day and age, I guess I should maybe divulge that information. Maybe in order to get a hamburger, I'm going to have to say that.
And you're right, Tim.
I'm tired of it.
Precedent.
And to be honest with you, I've never been very vocal hold on, let me rephrase that. I guess I have been very vocal in my thoughts and how I feel.
I was going to say, anybody that knows you knows better than that.
I've never joined a group like this or whatever and got this worked up. I've had several conversations with Dave and Will over the last week, and this has really worked me up. And I don't understand why, but I think as I look back and I look at the frustrations and what businesses and small business has gone through over the past 18 months, complying with these regulations. We'll do this. No, don't do that. Like the goalposts continually move back and forth. And these businesses are spending thousands of dollars to implement these legislations and these regulations. This is one more thing. And I think it's the straw that broke the camel's back. How on earth are these small businesses going to monitor this and turn away irate customers? There's going to be fights. There's going to be, it's instilling, confrontation. And our Premier Horgan just stated here the other day, and I think it was yesterday, and I'd have to go and look at it, is that, well, just call the RCMP. Oh my Lord. Do they not have better things to do than to come down to the burger joint and say, hey, you can't go in because you don't have a vaccine passport and they're not going to let you in? This is just ironic and just absolutely off the cuff. Who thinks of these things?
So you really want to jump in here, William? I can see it in your eyes.
Well, the anyone else watching can't, because we just have Tim on the screen here. But I do want to have this conversation, Tim.
Oops.
But I want to put a little pin in it. And we'll continue our interview with Sean here. I want to get the skinny on how he's dealing with the group, and then we're going to move into that, because that's where I think the audience participation will also come in really handy, because I want to make a PSA out to everyone who is watching this. We do want you to comment. That's kind of a cornerstone that we want with the show, is that we want you to comment and talk to us so we can talk to you. It gives us something to talk about, but it also helps you feel engaged, and we want it to be a collaborative effort with the people listening and or watching. So please fire off questions into the comments. We may not get to them right away. We may leave that to later in the show, but we do want to get to them.
Will, I'm going to raise my hand here.
Yeah.
So I apologize for the screw up and Tim being on the screen for 4 minutes.
Okay.
I apologize for anybody who had to look at him that long at his grumpy mug. So I will do my best, but I am going to be off the screen for a while, but I'm here.
I've seen Tim's nostrils enough now. I'm kind of used to it. So it's all good. But yeah, so
we love you, Tim.
We touched on the fact that you have people now helping you out, Sean, with moderating and managing this group. Then I imagine it must have been, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of overwhelming to deal with the sheer amount. Because I'm assuming if you have 90,000 people, if 1 out of every 10 of them is posting every day, that is an insane number of things to sift through and moderate.
Yeah, we decided that all the posts have to be screened. All the members have to be screened. We got a very strict posting policy on, no flag words. We don't want to be associated with the anti-masks. We don't want to be associated with the anti-vax or anything like that. We're strictly pro-freedom, pro-personal choice, pro-medical privacy. But it was a lot of work. I can only imagine. Every evening right now, it's constant, just bombardment. There's probably a few thousand post or a few thousand member backlog. There's a few hundred post backlog that we constantly are sifting through. A lot of people are very trigger happy. They kind of don't take the time to read the rules or the announcements. There's all sorts of information in there to help you guys out so your posts don't get denied. I've been getting messages constantly from people saying, how come my post was denied? It's like, well, we don't want to go off the rails of kind of what what our message is.
Because from what I understand, you guys have kind of narrowed the focus of the group to functioning as a directory almost for businesses, as opposed to a place to converse about it, because there's other groups for that. I think you guys made a Telegram as well.
We made a Telegram to act as a kind of a digital roster, and there's a place for people to talk about stuff there, and you can there's a channel where it's divided into certain communities and different cities, so you can talk amongst your own community and that sort of thing. We started a chat group that was pinned with the main body of the group as well. For it's kind of the Wild West. It's not really moderated all that much. They kind of do their own thing over there. Right. And there's also there's businesses that have been reaching out to us for help. They're getting a little bit bombardment from some of the haters out there.
Right.
I'm getting hate mail. I've never got
that was my
before.
next question. Is
pretty nice guy.
How's that going? Because again,
there's been a lot more
publicity.
Positive support than negative. There's been a lot of positive, and hearing some of these stories from some of these people is it's heartbreaking sometimes. Some of these people have lost their jobs. They've found out now that they won't have a job to go back to. There's families that are being torn apart, and it's the division that is being created by all of this has been created for the last couple of years. It's spiraling out of control, and it's got to a point now where it's reached critical mass, and now we have to kind of band together as a community and a province and a nation and stand up for what we believe in, and I feel that this now has created kind of a conduit for people to and it's to bring them together. It's brought a lot of BC together, and it's there's a lot of people in here now that are that share the values of just common people that want to see freedom.
It's really interesting in looking at the members and the posts and the comments. Again, so for 3 days, I've been reading as many of them as I could. I don't think I've read as many as you, Sean. I've been reading a lot. And again, there's a theme, and there's one of the comments here that
I get that a lot,
which really is often. It's amazing how often that these comments are coming again. Said, I just need support. I just need a little bit of somebody who agrees with me, as I feel like I'm out in left field.
So I want to quickly backtrack. Actually, for those of you who end up listening to this after it's being recorded, I want to read those comments out quickly. If you can throw them back up. Or actually, I can find them.
I got it.
So someone commented, "So grateful for this group. It's basically what has helped me not go over the edge this week. Just knowing that there's others out there with the same thinking as me."
I get that a lot. There's a lot of people. I didn't realize that there was so many people that, I mean, I knew there were a lot, but I didn't know that it would be a way for everybody to come together, and the comments that you see on some of these posts are really uplifting, and they're really overwhelming, and it's bringing everybody together in a way that is not attacking anyone. We're bringing everybody together under the premise of unity and love and acceptance.
Right. It's kind of maybe like a community lightning rod per se.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
So this one here says, please thank Sean. Many members, most of us, are so very grateful to connect together and alleviate a lot of stress. We're all for serving all, acceptance of all. That's
Thanks,
some great
Tracy.
positive feedback. Yes. Thank you, Tracy.
Well, one of the things that I think has really helped as well is that I think, like most of the people that these comments are coming from, I feel exactly the same way. I didn't know who I could go and talk to. I didn't know who I was safe to talk about this with. And this group has really opened up my eyes that, I am not the minority. I don't believe. I think the majority of people, but we've been very silent for a very long time. And I think this is really bringing everybody together to say enough is enough.
Well, and they've said as well, I mean, they've come out, and I think the numbers that they say that of the amount of people in BC that are vaccinated is, around the 80 percentile. But I don't think that is the percentile of people that support something as drastic as this and as invasive as this. Most of the people that I've talked to that have actually been vaccinated are not in support of a passport. They believe that they have done their own due diligence to keep themselves safe by their choices, and they stick by that. And they think it's a redundancy to have a passport to go into a restaurant. And we feel like that we are restricted citizens in our own country, and it's an issue, and if it continues, it would set a precedent for something down the future.
I can chime in as being, to a certain degree, that person. I mean, for those of you who are new to the show, who are here from that group and haven't seen the show before, kind of the crux of it is that the Dave half of the show is generally very conservative leaning, and me, the Will half of the show, tends to be pretty progressive. And me, as what I would consider a pretty progressive guy, still think that this is overreach. This is over the top. I mean, I think that everyone should be getting vaccinated and go get the happy stabby, get it done. But this is not necessarily the best way to do it. And it is definitely infringing upon the basis for our freedom.
To come in the happy stabby? Seriously?
Yeah, the happy stabby. That's what I call it, because I get tired of saying vaccine all the time. I want to call it anything other than that.
For those of you who aren't,
it made me happy to get the stabby, so it's the happy stabby for me. Okay.
Here's one, Will, that I thought was interesting as well, because this is true. That the people in this group are the kind of folks who would hide Anne Frank. And I think that it does.
Hey, Chase.
And this is one that I've been after with Tim, that we should not be silent anymore.
I think this group is essentially woken, rather than waking up the sleepy people. Or I don't want to call anybody sheep, because that's not where I stand. But the people that are kind of, following along with the status quo, instead of that, we've woken up sleeping giants instead, and that seems to be, much more effective.
I love, again, from the progressive standpoint, where I may disagree with, or not disagree, where I support any endeavors to get people vaccinated. I don't agree with this endeavor, and I love seeing what is in many senses a peaceful form of protest in many ways. I love seeing that.
Political violence is not our gig.
Exactly. And after seeing everything that's happened in the States the last couple of years, seeing here in Canada how we have a big issue like this, like a really phenomenally huge and egregious issue that has happened, and seeing people band together, not to attack other people primarily, but for the sake of banding together to show support they're not to support, but to show, words are hard, how unhappy they are with the decision that was made, to show their disapproval, to show how not cool that is. And they're doing it with a sense of community and in a more uplifting way than, kicking in windows and stealing stuff. No shade to American listeners.
I think something that needs to be talked about as well is that, as we spoke about earlier, is how the goalposts seem to change and the rules change almost hourly at this point in this pandemic. Is in the lies at the beginning of the show, how Bonnie Henry said back in May, there's no chance that we'll have vaccine passports, and she had the support of Ravi Kahlon and Adrian Dix and the Premier John Horgan, and here we are today, just thrown down and said, this is it, we're doing it. I just read something here last night, is that it looks now that Doug Ford in Ontario is being pushed and is going to have some type of vaccine passport being implemented in his province very soon. Mm-hmm. And Alberta, I think, is not far behind. I hope I'm wrong. I truly do. I had a conversation with another friend, and I says, you guys, this is just the beginning. BC is, laid the gauntlet down, and I think it's happening across Canada, and we're seeing it happen. And it's time for us to stand up and say, no, enough is enough.
Here's an interesting angle, William and Sean. Maybe you can lean into this. I remember a year or two ago when they had the new gun law that came in when the Prime Minister said, hey, we're going to make these guns illegal.
XYZ weapons.
Yeah. And there was a lot of unhappy people. And I'm wondering, again, I have said this over and over again, why weren't us more angry earlier on? Is this the straw that broke the camel's back, this thing that said you have to have a vaccine passport?
I think it is. I think it got to the point where it's starting to affect more people's lives. I mean, I know with myself and my family, being able to go, I'm not anti-mask. I had a mask on yesterday to go into Save on Foods, right? To do a little bit of shopping in. And it hasn't really affected people's lives. I mean, it's affected a lot of lives, but now it's reached this critical point where it's you got to get skin in the game. So you have to get involved or don't. And I don't think not getting involved is an option anymore.
I find it hard to argue with that. Like again, despite coming from the opposite end of the aisle, I find it hard to argue with the fact that people have to be more involved with it. I mean, again, being progressive, I think that the previously mentioned ban on certain firearms was not the way to go about it. That was a terrible way to do it. If you want to change how gun control works in Canada, by all means, try to lobby for change in gun control. But outright banning stuff and expecting people to just take it lying down is not the way to go about it. That's not the way to do it.
But Will, hold on. In Canada here, it seems like we have been able to do. They've been able to do it. We have been lying down and just not, standing up for our rights. This is the problem, and I think finally, by this group coming to fruition. And what Sean did is finally making people stand up and think that maybe there is a voice out there. Maybe we do have the majority of votes. Maybe we can do something. And I think this is the way to start. And it's funny because when Dave and I first started talking about this, and I said to him, I says, Dave, you should maybe hop on board here. And one of the things he says, it's one of those groups again, as I was skeptical at the beginning as well. I truly was. It's just one of those groups there, that you see on Facebook. It'll go for a day or two and it'll fizzle out and that'll be the end of it. Well, you know what? People have hopped on board and they have now decided, and I think, Dave, maybe you can comment, is I think I swayed your mind after you started seeing how quickly the amount of people were joining onto the group.
Well, I won't lie. I made our headline in YouTube, the how to get 30,000 subscribers. A little bit of a clickbait shit, as nobody does this. And there are formulas, and there are all these ways. If you do this and you advertise here and you pay for ads, you can get 1,000 views a day. I mean, really, what you need to do is have a cause that folks agree with.
That's just
there's
it.
A little
you
bit
have to strike a common chord. And
this is incredible. This is absolutely amazing.
A guy that saw a need and decided to fill it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys got me there, but I saw a need for people and wanted to be. I didn't even think it was going to do much.
Yeah.
But I shared it with. I only have 30 friends on my Facebook list.
You have more requests than that now.
Oh man, the amount of requests that I've had to deny. I apologize to all the people. It's nothing personal. It really isn't. But unless I actually see you on a regular basis, I don't really have you on my friends list. But I'm happy to answer comments from people and messages and things like that, and all the positive feedback and the love that I'm getting from people, and that the whole group is getting. All these admins, they're getting some fantastic responses from people. It's really uplifting, is what it is.
So I really am not a fan of the line. It's a slippery slope, as everybody used that from preachers to politicians. Yet I believe we've been on this for about a year and a half of we hand over our control, we hand over our rights, we hand over, and it goes on. And it is a bit of a slippery slope.
I mean, how to word this? I'm of two minds on it. In one case, it's historically speaking, it's hard to argue with the fact that the Canadian government tends to take little niggles of our freedom away for the sake of a greater need or something like that, and then they just never bother handing it back, which is highly suspect. At the same time, I look at this specific situation of like rolling out the passports and why they wouldn't have wanted to do it earlier. I mean, they have to know that they're going to get. There's no politician in their right mind that made this decision and was like, it's fine. It'll be fine. Nobody's going to care. It's all going to blow over. They had to know they were going to get blowback. Now, did they know they were going to get this level of blowback? Probably not. But they had to know there was going to be blowback.
I don't think you're correct there, Will. I truly believe that for the last 18 months, they've had zero blowback. None. This was just going to be another, here, this is the rules, just follow it and go ahead and do it. There has been zero blowback for the past 18 months, and all the restrictions that have been placed on people over that time has never changed. And they just continue to add a little more and a little more. And one of the things is that if you really think, and this is my own opinion again, that by saying that they're going to put an end date in all this and, it's going to be released and it's going to be that off. Tell me one time in history that the government has instituted something and said, it's only going to be on for a short period of time. I can bring up a couple instances about the GST was supposed to be just to help, and we're going to amalgamate this so that there won't be tax on top of tax on top of tax. Well, here we are, some 30 years later, and now we're getting taxed on top of tax on top of tax. And let's go right back to the Income Tax Act of 1918. That was only going to be put in place. That's only going to go in place for a period of time. So my question is to everyone, is if you think that this is just the beginning and it's just going to be a vaccine passport and it's just to this and it's just for the greater good of mankind and it's just for this, I tend to have a different belief than that. I think this is just another step in the process.
What's the
process? I'd have to agree, Tim.
I don't
absolute
know what
power corrupts absolutely.
And
wait.
Maybe
we're all jumping at the same time.
That really good quote. I love that quote. That is an amazing quote. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Thank you, Sean. I want to hit on this comment while it's still on the screen, though. Any type of ban causes underground markets. I was searching, so they were searching for this group and they found this. That is spot on. Who's that said that?
I will get it back on the screen.
Single mom diary.
I don't know who you are, but you hit the nail on the head. Any kind of ban creates a black market. When in specifically Western history, when has a ban on something ever gone well for us? When we banned alcohol, that went great, right? That really, everyone loved that. So yes, while I want people to get vaccinated and all these things, these unilateral bans on things without the people's input. I mean, you look at how many of chambers of commerce across the province are reacting to it. They weren't informed either. They were given no heads up. They were not consulted. None of these communities were asked, hey, what do you think about this? They just went ahead and did it.
So that goes right back to what I said, Will. This was just another, check mark that nobody's going to say anything because for the past 18 months, nobody has said anything. So this is just going to be easy. We're just going to head and do it.
Well, look what Bonnie Henry had said back in May, that they weren't even going to do this. I knew along with a lot of other people, we knew a long time ago, when this was first, probably about a year ago, that, eventually it's going to get to a, ask me, where are your papers? And everybody looked at it, they, derogatory comments, conspiracy theorists, this and that, and whatever, some of the conspiracy theorists are starting to run out of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, they're coming to fruition.
Here's a good one, and I don't know this. Are any of the parties opposing this?
That's a tricky one to answer. I know locally speaking, members of the Conservative Party here, where I'm at in northern BC, have spoken out against it, at least as so far as to say, hey, this is an overreach. We don't approve of it. I believe one local representative said something along the lines of, oh, hey, look, vaccination rates have skyrocketed since you made this announcement. Now you don't have to make it. You should just take it back.
So I think the People's Party has actually come out and said that
People's Party,
they don't support it.
Yeah, Melissa said that. Yeah.
Well, Dave and I had a private conversation about this earlier, and in my opinion on the political parties, they're taking a very fine line, and they don't want to make anybody mad, and they're just going to throw money at it, and this will get fixed and that'll get fixed. I don't think there is a political party that wants to even tackle this question. They're all just
if they cripple small business.
Right.
If they cripple small business because of this, where are they going to get the money to do any of that? I mean, 90% of all the businesses in Canada are small business. If you're attacking small business, it's going to cripple our economy. I mean, that's the part that's pretty important, right?
That's the part that boggles me, is how could the government make this decision and not realize that not only is it going to hurt them in terms of public discourse, but it's going to hurt the government's bottom line. If less people are buying things, that's less tax dollars. How could they think that was a smart decision?
It is interesting in reading the news about this, and it seems as though the party line, I don't know if that's a good phrase, is that everybody or the majority are in favor of it, or there's a poll and these 80% are in favor of a passport, and I just wonder where they get their numbers from.
There was a poll, actually. I think Castanet did it. I'm not too sure, but I think they came out and said that it was hijacked by a bunch of bots. I saw that somewhere. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but
yes. I can offer some clarification. Is I saw that message when you sent it to us, and I did some quick Googling. So as far as my quick Googling goes, I'm not a research specialist. The Castanet poll, yes, some bots were picked up in there, and so those results are effectively null and void. There is another group, I believe, called Research Co. They also did a poll within, I believe, Canada, not just BC, about the possibility of vaccine passports, and there was something around 84% that were at least somewhat okay with vaccine passports, but there's a lot of ambiguity as to where they got those results. Are they polling people at, say, if they're polling people at, say, like a vaccination station, I call it that, but anywhere where you can get a vaccine, that means the person who's getting that question is probably getting the vaccine and would probably support it because it won't affect them as much. And so it kind of skews the results. And so I don't put a lot of faith in polls like that.
Okay, I do like that comment. Who answers polls? Not me.
Well, that's something that I kind of liked. I didn't get the chance to get into this with you, Tim. So to fill in everyone else in, Tim and I had a conversation on Facebook the other day where we were discussing how the local municipality that I'm in has a poll asking a bunch of questions about whether people support this, whether or not they've been vaccinated, et cetera. And Tim takes issue with the fact that they're asking if you've been vaccinated as part of this poll. And while on one hand, I get that, yes, that's just part of the thing that is aggravating you, is them asking for medical information. But I think it's a really important data point when they're polling these people to ask whether or not they support the vaccine passport. It's good to know whether or not they are vaccinated or not, and to balance that out with the results, because then you kind of get a better deal. Like, obviously, you looking at that, you can see if people who are vaccinated are, have a much higher chance of supporting the passport, that, well, yeah, they do, because it doesn't affect them. People who don't have the vaccine are going to be opposed to the passport because it's going to hit them the hardest. And it's a really important data point when you're taking polls like that to balance out the results.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I still believe that there is no way that a Chamber of Commerce or anybody has the right to ask me for my medical information. I'm sorry. I stand very firm on that. And that's not their right to ask me that. It isn't.
Well, this is, and I agree with you.
You know,
in the sense that,
but Will, what's next? And let me, and I'll finish, and I'll bow out here. Is that, as we were talking before, if you think that this is going to be the last thing, that, oh, it's just a vaccine passport, you know, once this is done, it'll be good. Don't forget, in British Columbia here, our insurance for our vehicles is done by ICBC. What's next? Do you have to show your vaccine passport in order to insure your vehicle? What about when you go to get your license renewed? Oh, you're just going to have to show me your vaccine passport. When is enough enough? You know, again, conspiracy theorists, this is my own opinion and my beliefs, but if they can do it on a drop of a hat to say that you have to have a vaccine passport to go in and have a hamburger, it's going to be pretty damn easy to implement. You don't get insurance for your vehicle until you show me your passport.
And that was the premise for us starting this group.
Yeah.
This, letting people know and making this directory. And I mean, there's an app there now. Well, it's kind of an app. It's not really a conventional app, but it's something you can add to the home screen of your smartphone, and use it. Like, yeah, it's great. It's a great compendium of information, and there's businesses are flooding there right now to put their information on there, so that there's an easy way other than Facebook. I mean, everything that happens with Facebook, we're trying to make sure that we stay away from all the trigger words and all the conspiratorial stuff, so that we don't get shut down. But I mean, there's a very real threat that Facebook can get shut down, and we want to make sure that there's other avenues available, and there's things going on behind the scenes with the kind of development team that we got that's come out of the woodwork to help us out. And and there's some stuff happening behind the scenes that I don't want to talk about just yet, but we'll let everybody know on the page when it happens, or on the Telegram, and it'll be really fun to see.
Awesome.
So I want to step in here. As early on, I said I don't want to lose the humor, and when we mock our guests every now and then over typos, William, this is for you, because you're the one that said whether or not. So thank you, Gloria, for pointing out that whether or not is redundant. That one is on you, William. We don't even get to mock the guests. Thank you, Gloria, for that. There are lots of comments here, which I'm going to stick on the screen. Maybe we can make a mention of a few of them. I find this is interesting. We're going down a dark. Is that the reason for the angst and the anger and the pushback?
Most likely. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I work in trades, so I spend my time talking to mostly tradesmen, and they're not always the most politically correct people to be talking to. They're kind of loud and obnoxious, and but they're really voicing their concerns over this. And I think especially in the construction field of things, if they decide to turn around and say you can't go on a job site without a vaccine passport, then there's what's going to happen to our building? What's going to happen to our infrastructure? What's going to where are the people going to go?
It's true.
So, and I don't mean to make this a loaded question, but I love the group. I love where we're headed. I love the whole idea behind this. But Sean, and maybe some of the listeners out there can chime in and let us know, what's the next steps? What do we do now to move forward? Do we continue growing the group? One of the questions, Sean, that I have for you as well is that you've been contacted several times by media outlets, global. It's being picked up quite a bit. You're being noticed. And what's your response to that? Do we keep growing it? Or do we keep putting the same face forward and growing the group to the point where finally the government has to listen? Right now, you're sitting at 93,000 people, which is 1.5% of the population of British Columbia, man, woman, and children. We're sitting at 4.8 million for the populace of British Columbia. So we're doing pretty good.
I've been in contact with other people that have started similar groups in different provinces, and they want to work very closely with us and try to build something bigger. We've discussed possibly changing the name of the group to instead of BC businesses to Canadian businesses, and then just amalgamate those groups into us. And I think that the bigger we can grow and the more numbers that we have behind us, especially for a message that is very inclusive and not kind of going against the grain, I think it would definitely show our government that there's a considerable amount of people that don't agree with what they've decided to do. I think we've got a web page that is kind of in development right now, and that's going to be it won't be strictly BC. And I think once we kind of decide if we're going to pull the trigger on going to a national stage, I think it'll get more notoriety, and more people will jump on board from all over Canada.
So I will add this one on, and I think conversation with Tim and with Will over the past week, everybody's asking about the money. If you look at the passport and where at the end of the day it focuses all the money at big business, it focuses at the Walmarts, at the Costco's, and it eliminates it, from the mom and pops who can't afford $18 an hour to have somebody at the door and look at ID. It aims.
It's directed right at small business.
It's
getting them right in the heart. I can't imagine having a gymnasium or a yoga studio or a restaurant and having to sit there and screen your people as they come in. There's, especially in a gym setting, some of these guys are pretty big. I don't want to be telling somebody you can't come in because you didn't show me your vaccine passport. I think I get my neck run. But hold on, Mr. Horgan said that we'll just call the RCMP. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That run really got to me.
Sorry, I don't want to derail, but I do need to touch on a comment. Where is it? I don't know if you can scroll back a little bit from. I'm not calling this person out. I'm just using it for the purpose of finding their comment from Gloria Miller. It's necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. I'm assuming the quote is from William Pitt. I take issue with that specifically. Necessity happens. Sometimes necessity does happen. Now, in this particular case, and I assume a lot of people viewing it are agreeing that this is not the appropriate level of necessity for this level of action, because this is ludicrous. But that quote is a vast overstatement. Necessity happens sometimes, whether on a personal level or a national level. Sometimes necessity does dictate harsh measures. And writing them off as, you all are just, those are just the rules of tyrants and you're slaves for thinking that. Sometimes necessity happens on a large scale. We happen to think that this is not that case. But I still love you. Thank you for viewing. But
William,
I take issue with that particular quote.
Marketing 101, the person viewing your screen is always right. Isn't that how it goes?
No, that's the customer is always right. And as of right now, she's not paying me. So
I think a better quote would be, it was Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson. If you surrender liberty for even the slightest bit of, I'm getting this quote totally wrong, for the slightest bit of security, you end up getting neither. Our rights are paramount. That they're not there to tell us what we can do. They're there to tell government what they can't do. And it's very important that people understand that. It's not, our rights are granted to us by our creator, whoever that may be or whatever that may be. To many people, it's a different thing. But they are granted to us by our creator, not by the state. Right. And I think that people really have forgotten that and need to realize that the charter was put in place to keep government in check, not to tell us what we can and cannot do.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, here's another question, and I'm sorry I keep putting these out there.
How dare you?
So, do you really think that if we would have been in the same type of situation a year ago, where we have a minority government in British Columbia that was being held in check by the other parties, do you really think that we would be forced to take a vaccine passport today? I say no. I think this was a well-planned situation where Horgan seen his popularity go up. He grasped at it. He was embracing the Green Party for, working with them, and everybody was so wonderful. I think he's seen this as an opportunity. It's a power struggle. He took the majority, and here we are today. He's going to be dictating, this is how it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm appalled at that.
I do want to push back on that, because it's really easy to feel that an amalgamous they, in this case Horgan and the NDP, that they have some sort of plan to do this, to infringe upon our rights. And I come at it from a different angle, where I think that it's less about some intent to infringe upon our rights or to seize power, and more from the point of view, I'm just making an assumption here that the NDP, being a more progressive party, are from the point of view they just want to get everyone vaccinated by whatever means possible. And they've taken this step to do that. Does that make this step right? Absolutely not. But I think that's the train of logic that they're on, is we need to get people vaccinated. How are we going to do it? Well, let's just make them do it. That's a terrible, terrible way to do it. But I don't think that it's some power grab or some insidious mustache twirling plot. It's an attempt to get the what they view as a necessary thing done, which is getting people vaccinated. I think that is a horrible step, and it was the wrong way to go about it. But I think I see that's how I see the impetus behind it.
I'm rolling through the comments. There's some really good ones. So
Yes.
I love my wife because she shared this one, and it was what Sean was saying, which I think is really key. The other one, which I'm just here again, this is one of the things that early on in the pandemic, it was the episode of Mike Rowe. He did an episode in his podcast on Essential. Who defines
That's well
essential?
said, Don.
Who decides
Well
essential?
said.
Is it your business, and you need to have a business in order to eat?
Mm-hmm.
It's essential to you. Why is Walmart essential?
Yeah.
Over a local gym. It really is. It defies logic when the government is saying a weed store in the state of Washington, I live here, weed stores were essential, and local grocery stores who were locally owned were not.
Mm-hmm.
Not cool.
Okay, I want to pull up another comment.
I think gyms should be essential. I mean, they're essential businesses. Yeah. They're essential to a healthy lifestyle.
Let me reiterate: every business is essential.
They are. Yes, every business is essential to them and their own conducive needs, and everybody's got families, everybody's got lives, and their own business, and where am I going with this? I totally lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
But it's Tim's right. Every business is essential. Everyone, because all these businesses have something in behind it. Like the business itself is just a front to a family that's behind that. Maybe the kids are in soccer practice, or my son's in figure skating and things like that, right? So I mean, it's every business is essential, Tim. Absolutely.
So here's a question for Will then. Like, here we are in a time of reconciliation. We're talking of, bringing people together. Everybody's rights are inclusive. We're all going to come together and everything's going to be, wonderful. Yet this vaccine passport, to me, is an infringement of everybody's rights.
Agreed.
And it doesn't matter if it's what race you are, what creed you are, what church you go to. It to me, this is just an overreaching governmental thing, and these people need to be voted out. And this is why I go back to the thing. I don't think we would be in this position if there wasn't a minority government in British Columbia right now. I think the NDP is looking for power, and they're flexing it.
See, the
voice of the people stands very proud. Like the voice of the people stands. If we can get our voices to echo louder than our political leaders. I mean, I don't want to derail down a political statement, but the people dictate what happens in a democratic society. I mean, as far as I'm aware. So if we can get enough people together and rally behind a common goal and a common goal of unity, then we're it sounds like a great message.
And I agree with that whole statement, Tim, except for the very last sentence where it's an NDP grab for power, because I think that any political party that does something like this, I don't think they think they're going to win any popularity contests. If anything, I think they know it's going to cost them to do something like this. And I agree that it is an overreach, a vast overreach, and infringing on people's rights.
Canadians by far are a very forgiving group of people. And we're going to be 4 years before the NDP. Do you think they'll even remember this in 4 years? we'll just give out more money again. And I'm not an NDP lover. I'm not a hater. I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I'm not green. And I don't think that's, again, anybody's right to know how I vote. That's another private thing on my decision. I just don't agree with the policies that they came out with, and I'll take that one on the chin, I guess. But I still think the NDP was looking. This is well planned, and Mike said one. I'm looking at the comments. It says something else someone else is pulling these strings. I don't want to get into conspiracy theorists and
Thank
whatever
you for that.
But and it's the truth though, Dave. Like
I'm going to give my 2 cents, and this is going to be a broad covering of almost all these, because we've seen little snippets of quote unquote conspiracy theories throughout the comments, throughout this whole thing. I've seen how difficult it is to wrangle 10 people, to get them to get along and to do things and to orchestrate a plan of any level of complexity. You'll never convince me that there is someone high above pulling all these strings and running a puppeteer, because people are too stupid to stay attached to those strings and do what they're told to do that often and that effectively. I don't think that.
I want to make a point on that. I don't think that there's a nefarious man behind the curtain, kind of the puppet master control and everything. I think what it is mostly that the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I think up until now, the squeakiest wheel were the people advocating for, that people are scared. People, there's a lot of news media that's twisting stuff around, and it's got their backup. And I think government and political parties and political leaders have, capitalized on that fear essentially a little bit, and they're gearing themselves towards what's going to get them votes. And the squeakiest wheel and the loudest voices have been, the people that don't align with the message that me and, the group and our members are trying to put forward. And I think now the messages and the voices of the unheard are shining brightly on Canada right now.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's well said, Sean. And I that's a great comment that you just brought up. Like I say, I hope this group grows exponentially as it has over the past week, and we continue to be a voice, and a reasonable voice, I guess, and that people will start to listen. I'm hoping.
I think it will. I think it will, as long as people can steer away from the conspiratorial rhetoric, the anti-mask, the anti-vax stuff, and things like that. Like, there are places for that. Put it there. That's not what we're about. That's not what we want. We heard from, we've seen photographs of the September 1st protest that's out there. We're not associated with them. I wrote a post for a press release essentially today, spelling out who we are and what we stand for, and that's not what we are. We just promote unity and freedom, and that's all we want. Right. And it allows people to see that that we aren't against vaccines and we aren't against masks and that sort of stuff. And at least it gives a voice to the unheard.
And I want to, before we close this episode out, I want to touch on, as you're leading out with that and your values and what you're really about with that group, I want to touch on the inevitable possibility that Facebook may put the kibosh to it. And I don't want to see this movement or this group die. So do you have any backup plan, any contingency plan for if Facebook decides, hey, we don't think this is kosher?
We advise everybody to get over to the Telegram group and the channel that we've set up. We advise everybody to download that directory app, to refrain from nasty comments. We got a zero tolerance policy for any internet bullying or anything like that. If Facebook happens to flag, your comment for violating their standards, then I'm sorry, but you can't be on there. And sometimes the frustrations get to people, and I understand when they message me back and say, hey, I stand with your group, and I get that. But we got to make sure that, we kind of align with Facebook a little bit right now. And, they're kind of a conduit for other things as well to get people over to that directory app. When the website launches, we can get people over there. There's a lot of other avenues. If Facebook does happen to go down, we would rather it not. So we're trying to to kind of fly under their radar, so to speak. But definitely, all our members get over to the Telegram group and the directory app. It's linked in the featured posts. It's also in the announcements tab. Go check it out. Make sure you read all that stuff. People don't get messages all the time from people. Oh, how come my post was kicked? It's like, we have a very strict policy on what you can't say. The flag words that get booted off of Facebook, and we want to make sure that we're at least towing the company line, so to speak, right now, at least until we can get more people onto other avenues and other platforms.
Yeah, so let that be kind of a call to action to those of you who are listening or part of that group.
Yeah, get on Telegram, get on the Discovery app, get out there.
Yeah. Get out there, find other avenues to communicate, but especially with the Facebook groups specifically, keep it civil, keep to the rules.
Please keep it civil. Keep it civil.
Exactly. Stay within the lane there, and we can see the group continue to grow and continue to continue its purpose.
How do we get to the Telegram group? There's a link in the if you read the announcements to all new members, all the information is all up there. I've answered probably hundreds of messages of people saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? And just read the rules, read the announcements. All the information is in there. Yeah. Everything you could possibly question me about.
The page, there's a couple of tabs near the top, just below like the title of the page. That's, home, announcements, events, etc. Go to announcements. It's in there.
Yeah. You want to chat about stuff that's not related to it and totally unrelated. If you happen to click on the title of the group, in there's a couple of pinned other groups. We got our chat group as well, and that's kind of the Wild West, and they're over there doing that thing. So that's what that's for. If that gets shut down, I tell you guys to be civil, but you can't. So,
and I know we're running a little late.
Not that. It was a comment. It was a comment. Sorry.
And I know we touched on it earlier, and we're running a little over time, Dave. And I don't know how long you want to.
I don't have an end limit. We can go as long as you guys want to hang around. I'm good.
Can we discuss a little more about some of the backlash that some of the local businesses within, Sean's area has seen, and maybe you were going to bring that up, and maybe we can discuss that. Okay,
I'm getting there. You guys, I can talk for a minute, and I'll get there.
So.
Don't know what to talk about right now. put us on the spot like that, Dave.
While we're waiting here, I'm going to touch on a couple of comments. So I really love this one quote that Geoff Gibbons said. The best way to combat terrible ideas is to argue with much better ones. Great quote. Really enjoy that.
Perfect, Jeff. That's great.
I'll never claim to be a smart man or to have better ideas, but open discourse and discussing ideas is the best way to combat crappy ones. And the other comment I want to touch on is from a gentleman who said, "These men are beta males."
It isn't men, Will. It's I don't think it's men. It's Yoko Yukio.
Well, his comment is, "These men are beta males." I didn't want to call him out by name, but there he is.
I believe it's a she, but yes.
So, yeah. If having a calm, polite discourse on a very contentious topic with men who are not necessarily of the exact same mind as myself, or vice versa for the other gentleman here, if that's what makes us beta males, then I fly the flag proudly, because this is good stuff. Having
you have to be civil. You have to
exactly
pull out all your $10 words. Make sure that you can have an open discourse. Do it civilly. Be nice. Don't get frustrated. Don't start cursing at everybody and all that stuff. I don't think anybody's ever called me a beta male before, but
I haven't either. But
let me chime in here. Is that when Dave worked for me for many, many years, my wife would literally look at us because we would sit and argue for hours. And I'm not going to say it's arguing, but we would have a difference of opinion on the way the job had to be done or had to be this.
She is so laughing at you right now. It most certainly was arguing.
But you know what it was, though, is that we come together and we worked it out, and it did. And this, Dave, and maybe you can tell them, is that this was the whole premise of this show. And Sean has really brought it together this way, is that you've always stated, go out and talk to somebody, go to the coffee shop, take your friend out for a walk and discuss these very pertinent issues. You don't have to agree. You don't have to be upset. You don't have to like what they have to say. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're still going to be friends. It's
Exactly.
I always mention I got a friend. He's like my brother, and we've known each other for a very long time. He has opposing ideas to me, but we've been friends for a long time, and we can still talk on controversial topics and end up being friends at the end of it, and sit down and have a beer afterwards, and agree to disagree, and still get on with our happy little lives. We need more of that. We need more people that, there's a lot of people just at each other's throats just because they disagree on something. Like, you don't have to agree on everything, and not everybody's going to. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. They're all different. Okay. I mean, people just need to accept that, and and be nice to each other. Like, if we had more people that were just nicer to each other, I think this world would be a much happier place.
Great.
Communicating is the big thing. And for the past 18 months, nobody communicated because the oppression came down and said, you can't do this. You have to do this. We're going to lock you down. Finally, we have a platform now with your group, Sean, is that we're able to communicate. And I applaud you by it.
I'm all for it.
So I do want to ask, hold on, Will. I sort of want to ask, for those of you in the comments, we don't really need to argue with one another in the comments. It doesn't help any. So if you don't like what somebody's saying, ignore it and go away, or talk about something else. Leave each other alone.
That's my thing. I was just to hit on the exact same thing, basically. So to Yoku, don't throw hate at Yoku. They're just expressing their opinion. Let them express their opinion. That's fine. To their opinion that you'll never work on my helicopter, that's okay. If our discourse, our civil discourse that we're having is not to your liking, then I guess our show just isn't for you, and that's the way it is. The civil discourse is what we're building this show on, and that is what we promote. If you don't like it, that's okay. There's the door. You will be missed because it was entertaining.
And don't let people bait you into an argument. I mean, if somebody's baiting you into it, just move on. Again, you agree to disagree.
Yeah. That's the way it is. But that's what we do here. That's what we support here is a civil and open discourse between people.
And you guys are doing a great job. I think this is awesome.
Thank you.
I've never been on a podcast before. I've never, this is my first group, my first anything. I listen to podcasts. I don't get interviewed on them. So this is really, really overwhelming for me.
So this is where we get back to where I don't know who posted this. I'll get off the screen. And when was this, Will or Sean? Who?
This was a couple of days ago. This was sent to me. I think, Tim, didn't you send this to me?
Yeah, I did. It was actually posted on your group, but like you say, you get so many posts, and it just kind of popped up while I was looking at it. And it's from a local company in Salmon Arm. The gentleman stated that his wife was in Salmon Arm going for shopping or whatever it was, and seen her vehicle, and I don't know if it even had the logo of his company on the side of it, and this is what was left on his wife's car.
You want to read that, Will?
Okay, you want to go to the top for me? I'll scroll up there. So it says, saw your post on Facebook. Just wanted to say I will not support your business and will actively discourage others to use your services. This is a first for me. By you not complying to health orders, you put people at risk. My life matters to myself and my family.
I don't think there's any need for that.
No, it was sent to me, and I kind of, for lack of better words, rallied the troops, I guess, and put it on the Facebook group and said, hey, send out some love to this guy. We don't want to, we don't boycott people. We don't want to do that kind of stuff. But I reached out to him actually yesterday, I think, and asked him how things were going. He said, he's like, the overwhelming amount of love that he's gotten from the group. He's like, it's, he's gotten a little bit of hate, but it's been overwhelmingly positive. And a lot of support. I think he's actually got a couple of clients now because of it. So
fantastic.
Good.
Why don't you read this one, Will?
Okay.
For the audio.
To love profoundly, we must possess an inalienable, intractable hatred for injustice. Gloria Miller. Quoting Gloria Miller.
Actually, more of the screen was what I wanted you to read.
Oh,
but that's
okay.
You can do that too.
I want to say, Gloria Miller, I am smirking because I find that funny, not because I think it's a bad quote. You keep doing you. So I'm going to read the quote that's on the screen, or the post is on the screen for those of you who are not watching but listening in the future. Hi, future people. I have been overwhelmed with support from people all over the province this week after taking a stand, sticking up for my business and staff. This evening I received a call after hours, and the gentleman on the phone said he would like to give us a tip. I went to the front door and met him and his son. He was from Maple Ridge and wanted to help support my business. His name was Clay and his son Silas. He left me a generous donation, and I asked him why. His response was, I wanted to teach my son that freedom comes with a cost. This is one of many stories this week. Several have come into the restaurant to support and will continue to support. Thank you to everyone who commented in support and those who liked, hugged, and loved. Also to the few that were angry and sad, I understand both sides, but I have to take a stand for my business and my staff.
It's true.
That's should we say the name? You know, Papa G's Cafe.
Sure, it's on the screen. Yeah.
We support
Papa G's Cafe. Hey, if they're listening, I'm on my way back through town when I end up heading home in a couple of weeks here. I'll pop in and see you guys.
Awesome.
I want to. Sorry,
yes, William.
Well, one more comment I want to touch on because I don't want to carry on this topic any further. But
which one? I'll put it on the screen.
The Gloria Miller. These men will block you if you point out their effeminacy.
There you go.
Yes, I actually am rather proud of my effeminacy. I don't know if we silenced. I don't know if one of our moderators silenced Yoko for their comments or not. We did that because we want to keep the discourse civil and concise, not because we have anything wrong with what they're saying. That's why I addressed it, is because I still hear them and I still reply to their comments, not because I have any ill will towards them or think that their comments are invalid or inferior. It's simply to keep the comment section as clear and concise as possible.
So I think we can wrap this up. I sort of want to say to those of you who are watching, as much as I appreciate all the likes and the subscribes and all of that, it helps us a little bit. I kind of want to get the word out for the group and for Sean. And so you don't have to like or subscribe to the channel, but I really would like it if you would like and subscribe at the group. It really is important.
I can second that.
I'm third.
Yeah. Fourth.
Well, we're all in agreement.
Geez, on that note of complete agreement, I think we can end this show. William, you have any wise words of wisdom for our listeners?
I do. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Stay safe and don't die.